Another day, another super interview. Hi, I'm Tonya Duncan Ellis with Write This, an author interview show. And today I am super excited to welcome Debbie Michiko Florence, a children's chapter book author, to talk about all of her exciting works. And I became acquainted with her this fall during a Highlights conference. She's an amazing person, just super sweet. And her books are so cute. I read her Jasmine Taguchi book. This is a starter in her series, and it is absolutely adorable and so engaging about a young girl and her family. And then I read recently Sweet and Sour, one of her new releases. So I can't wait to talk about this one. This just warmed my heart. So I see that Debbie is on, and I'm going to invite her. And thank you all for joining for this interview. I've been looking forward to this for the past few days. Always pushing the wrong buttons here. I've hit accept. So let's see if she pops on. Okay, hey, how are you doing, Debbie?
Hi, good. How are you?
Fine. I'm so happy to have you on because as I was saying, before I met you at the Highlights conference, I hadn't read your books and I just fell so in love with them, especially Sweet and Sour.
Oh, thank you.
This book had me tearing up. You've missed your calling as a romance author because
I want that.
yeah, so sweet, and it'll make you mad at your husband. I'm like, I want a Zach. Zach's you need to be acting like him. So this is so cute, Debbie. I loved it. Loved it. And also Jasmine Taguchi, I've just read the starter, but she is just adorable and just so,
thank you.
yes, I love them so much. But now that you're here, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about where you're from and some of your works.
Oh, well, thank you, Tonya. I am Debbie Michiko Florence, and I am third-generation Japanese American from California, born in San Francisco, raised in Los Angeles, but have kind of made my way all over the world. And currently, I live in Connecticut. I'm actually calling you from my husband's office because we were hanging out here. I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta do Instagram Live. I am an author of chapter books, middle grade books, and picture book biography. And like you said, Sweet and Sour is my newest middle grade book, and my newest book in the Jasmine Taguchi series just came out in September called Brave Explorer.
Okay, awesome. And I saw that you have another one coming out. Is it How We Roll?
Yeah, This Is How We Roll, which is another middle grade. This one is a rom-com. And it's coming out January 3rd about a girl who has a famous sushi chef dad. And she feels like he doesn't want to teach her how to cook. And she really wants to be like her dad. And so she meets this boy and they start this cooking vlog together. And she's learning from his mom. So you know what happens when you keep secrets from your parents. So eventually.
Always kinds of shenanigans going on.
Yeah.
The rom-com, yeah, because I feel like you have such a good touch. I'm a romance lover, even though I love children's books. Of course, I talk about that on my page, but you have a great little touch with the romance because
thank you.
So invested. So now I'm ready for this new one that's going to be coming out in January.
Oh, thank you. I'll look forward to hearing what you think.
Yes. Now give us a little bit of information about Jasmine Taguchi. I read that you sold over 150,000 copies of that series.
Yeah. I don't know. You've sold quite a bit yourself. So Jasmine Taguchi is a third grade girl. She's Japanese American, lives in Los Angeles. There you go, Mochi Queen. That's the first book in the series. And, overall, the book is about a little girl wanting to do something before her bossy big sister, because her big sister is always the expert in everything and telling her how to do things. And so she figures out if she does something before her sister, she can be the expert. And she decides, because in their family they make mochi on New Year's Eve, which is a Japanese sticky rice treat. Traditionally, there's a boy's job, a man's job, which is pounding the rice into a big mass. And then the women's job is to take that and roll it into shapes. This is traditionally. So I wondered, what if there was a little girl in a family like that who wanted to do the boy's job? What would happen then? And so basically, Jasmine decides she wants to pound the mochi with the boys because she'll get to do it before her older sister. And from there, 3 more books came in the series. And then there was a short gap of a couple of years. And now I have 4 more coming out in the series. Yes.
A lot, yes.
Yeah.
And what I love about the book, I just read the first book, of course, is that it highlights the Japanese culture and the Japanese American culture, but it seems so universal. Were you aware of that when you were writing the book?
Yeah, I very much wanted to write about being Japanese American, because I am 3rd generation. I feel very American. I grew up in Los Angeles with a very large Japanese American community. So I did not experience the feeling of being othered or kind of isolated until I became an adult and I moved elsewhere. But as a child, I just felt like I was your regular American child. And I really wanted to write a story about a girl who was very similar to that. Like the weaving in of the Japanese culture, because that's how I grew up, but also, dealing with day-to-day things, like in the first book is dealing with a bossy older sister. In the second book, it's she and her best friend have a fight right before celebrating the Japanese holiday of Girls' Day. So Jasmine needs to figure out how to make up with her. I see Winsome's with us. She likes that book best. And and then all the other books, there's a little Japanese culture, but there's an overall theme of friendship or family or, school situations. So I did that intentionally.
Right. I really love that about the books. And I live in Houston. So in the Asian community, or the people I know here with Asian heritage, we don't have many Japanese that I've known. So it's intriguing to me to learn about the culture. And that was really fun reading the book. Now, can you tell us a little bit about your new release? Is Sweet and Sour is your newest release? Is that right?
Yes, it is. It's my newest middle grade release. So this was a pandemic book. I came up with the idea during the pandemic, during shelter in place, basically about what would happen if you had like a childhood best friend, one's a boy, one's a girl. You pretty much spend every summer together, kind of growing up together. What would happen if there was a misunderstanding and one of the friends, the girl, decides that she can never forgive him? And he moves away with his family for a couple of years to Japan, and then they come back and they're being reunited. And so she is determined to either ignore him or get revenge. And he, of course, is kind of clueless. He doesn't know that she's mad at him. It takes him a while to figure it out. And the entire book is set in Mystic, Connecticut, where I live. And it's the first time, and I don't know how you do your settings, but I tend to not set books either in real places, so I can just kind of be kind of free, or in places I used to live. But I've never actually wrote a book of where I was living at the time. And it was new for me, but I think I did it because we were sheltering in place. There was nowhere else for me to be. But it is kind of my love letter to my hometown, my new hometown.
That's interesting. And my series is actually set in Houston or different places in Texas. And I do consider the books a love letter to my community.
Yay.
Got a lot of the things I love about the community in the books. Yeah, so that's very interesting that you write normally about other places.
Yeah.
So that. Now, I had asked you, I think I messaged you after I read the book, will there be a sequel to Sweet and Sour?
There is not one in the works right now, but in my head, I have a couple of ideas in my head. One is kind of writing a companion novel like I did. My first 2 novels, middle grade novels, were Keep It Together, Keiko Carter, and Just Be Cool, Jenna Sakai. And the companion novels, there are 2 characters who are friends, but they're individual stories.
Right about Zach's side.
Yeah, so it would be neat to do that. I also have mapped out their entire lives. So if I ever wrote a YA, I could kind of see writing like the high school version of Maya and Zach. But yeah, these are just pipe dreams right now.
I'm serious. I didn't want it to end. I was so into these characters. So
thank you.
And you have your books are super sweet. they have like a sweetness to them that I really like, kind of like a comforting feeling with both of them. These are the only two of yours that I've read that I enjoy. So
Thank
what
you.
your upcoming project, what is that one about? Well, you've told us a little bit about that one coming out.
This is how I roll. And I think that this is my most romance forward middle grade. But you know, it's me, so there's also some family and friendship drama in there as well. Um, and it's very, I don't want to say heavy on Japanese culture, but it's about sushi. So, and her dad's a sushi chef, so you really can't get away from that. And the parents speak Japanese, even though they're American, they do speak Japanese. So there's a little bit of that woven in also. I also got really hungry when I was writing this book. And I do have 3 more Jasmine Taguchi books coming out. Brave Explorer just came out last month of the chapter book series. And in these 4 books, Jasmine is traveling to Japan for the very first time with her family to visit her grandmother. So it's been fun for me to kind of revisit because I used to spend a lot of childhood summers in Japan. So it was fun to revisit what it felt like to be young and going to a country that was not yours. And so there are 3 more books coming out in January, March, and I think September. So I'm excited about that too.
So that would be kind of like a culture clash for her then, I guess. Yeah, and I think you told us a little bit about Brave Explorer when we were at the highlights camp.
Yes.
That's something I know a little bit of the storyline. Don't want to spoil it for me to read it. Yeah, that sounds very intriguing because there's so much you could do with that, with her growing up primarily in America and then going on over to Japan. So that'll be really fun.
Yeah, there is that kind of thing where when I used to go to Japan, especially when I was an adolescent, when I was very young, I was bilingual. But as I got older, I felt less cool about speaking Japanese. So my mom would speak to me in Japanese and I would answer in English. And eventually, if you stop using it, you will lose it. And so my Japanese is not very good anymore. But, you know, going to Japan, they look at me and I'm not Japanese. I'm an American, right? But here in America, looking at me, you don't say right off American. You'll think, you know, Japanese or Asian. And so Jasmine doesn't experience that othering feeling at home in Los Angeles. She has a diverse friend group. But when she goes to Japan for the first time, she kind of gets that feeling of not quite fitting in, not quite understanding what's going on. And so I don't want to say fun exploring that because it's painful for her, but it was interesting to be able to explore that.
And I think that will teach children and adults so many different things. That brings up so many different issues about different cultures, what it means to be an American, what it means to be Japanese. Yeah, that sounds so like such a good book to get some conversations going.
Yeah, and I do like to say, you know, in school visits, like, how many of you have ever been to Japan? And, you know, maybe a hand, but usually nobody. And, you know, I like to say, well, now you get to go. If you read this book, you will get to go to Japan along with Jasmine. And I love to talk about, as we all do, about windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors from Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop, you know, and how reading a book about Jasmine going to Japan allows the readers to also go to Japan.
Right. That's really great. That's a wonderful testament to the benefit of the diversity in kids' eyes. And yeah, this is maybe like, yeah, I want to read that. And it reminds me when I was in college, I actually traveled overseas. And some of us, some of the minority students would complain about certain things on campus. And then when the other students were overseas, we felt more comfortable there. So this brings back those memories for me, hearing you talk about that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, you mentioned when we started talking that you had also written a picture book. So I wasn't aware of that. What is that book?
Oh, that's funny because I'm in my husband's office here and he was showing it. I have it with me. It's the one book I have with me. It's Miki Nakayama, A Chef's Tale in 13 Bites. It's a picture book biography on Chef Miki Nakayama that I co-authored with Jamie McCallick, and it's illustrated by Yuko Jones about the chef Nikki Nakayama, and basically it seemed to follow a theme that I like to pursue about a girl being told she can't do something because she's not the right gender, because she wanted to be a kaiseki chef, which is a very specific style of Japanese cooking, and there were no female kaiseki chefs. But Nikki Nakayama wanted to do this, and she did it, and she's basically was the first female kaiseki chef. She has a restaurant called En Naka in Los Angeles, and if anybody out there watches Chef's Table on Netflix, she was in the first season. And so it was fascinating to tell her tale.
Oh, that sounds really cool.
And it's food related.
Japanese society is very patriarchal then. I guess I didn't know.
Yeah, you cut out there, so I didn't hear that whole
Oh,
thing.
okay. Well, it's more male dominated, I guess, in Japan. So I didn't. This is
Yes.
from
Yes, it's a very male dominated society.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's inspiring for girls anywhere.
Yep. We can do it all.
Right. Now, how did you get your start as a writer? Have you always written children's books, or what got you started writing for children?
Oh my goodness. You know, I've always loved to write, but it wasn't until I married my husband and we moved to Mexico and I couldn't take my job with me that I started really considering writing seriously as a career and getting published. And yeah, I'd say I started then, but it took me 15 years to get published. A little bit because we moved a lot, and you know, moving takes a lot of time and energy, but also because it took me a while to figure out where my stories best fit in. I thought I was a YA writer, and I kept trying to write YA, and not all of them, many of the rejections that I received were like, your voice is too young. You should be writing younger. And I was very stubborn, like, I want to write YA. But it wasn't until after Jasmine Taguchi sold, that was my first books that sold, that I thought about writing for middle grade. And I think, and this is the thing, because you were talking about the romance, I love writing about romance and friendship, but like more like first romance or, you know, first crushes, which wasn't quite back then, 20 years ago. That wasn't really YA, right? YA was a little edgier back then. And so I thought I couldn't write romance for middle grade because you didn't see that in middle grade back then either. So I feel like I was able to step into writing these middle grade books at a really good time because I think the market was more open for, you know, 12-year-olds to be reading about first crushes and maybe first kisses.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's interesting. But you know, when you think even with Judy Blume and things, they had the romance, but
yep.
Yeah, yours,
yeah.
I read a lot of middle grade. You're right. I don't see a lot of the romance in there. And I really liked that in there when they're understanding their feelings and working through all these issues. So it was very nice.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's also nice because there's a lot of opportunity for humor because, you know, at that age, everything's there's a lot of misunderstandings or miscommunication, or you can't really say, I like you, I have a crush on you. So everything's
like, just talk already, get together.
Right.
Yeah.
No. Yes, I did get one complaint about Sweet and Sour, that it took Mai too long to kind of talk to Zach. But honestly, if you talked to him early, there wouldn't be a story. So kind of you've got to plot it out.
And as a parent, I can see that even with my own frustrations, with my own young adults and older teens, you still, sometimes it takes a while for them to learn certain lessons.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you said that it took you 15 years to publish a book. Now we have a lot of people who listen who, you know, they're on their author journey and they're starting. So how many books do you have now?
21.
Right. So that's, you know, that you persevered and that even after those rejections and things, you kept with that craft. And what kept you going?
Partly I'm stubborn and partly passion. I love writing. I can't think of anything else I'd rather be doing. In fact, when people tell me they're sad or upset that they've been getting so many rejections, my suggestion often is, depending on how long they've been doing, well, quit. Because I tried to quit. And if you quit and you can't, then you know that's where your heart is. I really, really was going to quit writing. I was tired of getting rejected. I was frustrated. And I quit for all of just a few hours. I mean, I seriously, Tonya, I want you to know I was serious. I was quitting. I cried on the living room floor with my heart broken because I knew I had to let this go. And then after like 2 hours of crying, I decided I'm going to watch a movie. And I still remember the name of the movie. It's called August Rush. And I put in the old days of VCR, I put in the tape and I started watching. And in about 20 minutes, I came up with a story idea. And I wrote 20 pages by hand, the story, which, nothing ever came from it. That's when I realized, even if I never get published, I'm just going to keep writing. So
that's great.
I always tell people, quit and see if, you still want to write. And if you do, then keep going.
Right, because I feel like writing's just a part of my life. I used to be a journalist, and when I look back, I've always written in some way. I've always wanted to write or create stories or even make up stories for my kids, my nieces and nephews and things like that.
Right. And you persevered as well with Sylvie Washington.
Yeah, I've kept on with, and I love doing it, like you said.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've had signs along the way, even when, just like with you coming up with that story idea during the movie, and when times when I've wanted to quit, usually something happens. I'll get a letter from a reader or something will encourage me to continue on.
Yeah, and this end of the year season with all the best ofs and the all the book lists coming out, and those of us who feel like, oh, I'm not on the list or whatever, and then I'll get a letter, an email from a reader saying, this is my favorite book in the whole world, and and that's what really counts. I mean, it's nice to be on the list, it's nice to get star reviews and all of that, but really we're writing for our readers, and as long as we're reaching the readers, I feel like that's the most important thing.
Right. That's it. That's why we're here as children's authors. Now, could you give any advice to aspiring authors or those starting out, something you would recommend that they do?
Yeah, I think, the basic advice always is read, know your market. You and we talked about this during the chapter book workshop, and it's not enough to know what used to be, but you really need to know what's currently selling in the market, because it changes. I remember reading to my daughter when she was little. Do you remember that book, The Borrowers? I think that was the name of it. I loved that book as a kid, and I read it to my daughter, and she was so bored because the whole opening, there's nothing really happening. It's just introduction. So to really know what currently is selling, what currently is, I don't want to say popular, but what you'll find in the bookstores. I feel like if you're going to write, you need to know what is currently selling. You don't have to write for the market, but you should have an idea of the kind of things that are selling, and just grow your craft and keep trying. I wrote, I can't even, seven novels that will never see the light of day. That were my practice novels. And it's interesting because people are like, oh, maybe you can go back to those books and make them better and make them more current, but I can't, because now I've stolen from all those books, different scenes, I've kind of adapted and put into my books that are published now. So now I can never go back to those.
Right. And then when you were writing them, you were probably learning different things and growing.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And to be open to suggestions. I think that's for all of us. I still have a hard time when someone says, oh, this character isn't believable or whatever. And my knee-jerk reaction is, yes, it is. But, then you think about it and you try different things. People are just trying to help you.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're such a hard-working author. You're everywhere doing all these. So kudos to you for that, because
thanks.
Yeah, it's very inspiring to watch what you're doing. And can you tell people where they can find you, where they can?
Let's see. Well, here on Instagram, I'm Debbie _Michiko _Florence. I'm on Twitter as Debbie Michiko. I have a website. Again, if you go to my Instagram and you go to Linktree, you could probably find everywhere that I am. And my books, also all my books are linked also on Linktree.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank you, Debbie, for taking the
Thank you.
And I know busy with the holiday season. I've been looking forward to talking with you. And I'm happy I get to tell you personally how much I enjoyed your books.
Oh, thank you so much. And I hope we get to hang out again.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
real.
I'm coming to New York in February with the SCBW.
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to be able to go to that, but maybe I'll swing by and say hi to all
Oh,
the friends that are over there.
yeah, love to see you. And
Yeah.
thank everyone for joining us for this
Thank
episode.
you.
And hope you're enjoying your holiday season and look forward to seeing you again for another episode. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.